Hello and welcome to the One Shot Show where GMs go to level up. I am Patty. I am joined as always by Matt. And the question today is, how do you want to do this?
I feel like we should save that question for the end of the episode.
That's how we'll land. That's our outro.
Because fundamentally, this is the question that tends to wrap up the scene or scenario or encounter at hand.
Yeah,
I would like to do this calmly.
Calmly?
Yep. And insightfully.
Nice. We will calmly and insightfully unpack this trope, this beat, this moment of tabletop role-playing history. I looked up when it happened for the first time. It happened in episode 1 of Critical Role. I was like, did they even do a fight in episode 1? They did. It was against a Behair, I believe. And Sam Riegel got it around the 3 hours and 25-second mark. And it was the first time it was called out, and the whole table does what the whole table does less and less as time goes by. But they erupted, they celebrated, and then as a result, Sam got to describe his finishing move, the end of the encounter, and this great finale to their first big initiative.
And look, no doubt this, the phrase was probably uttered at some tables prior to this. I wouldn't dare to say that Matt Mercer is the first person to ever come up with it. He might have got it off someone who ran games for him at some point. But point being, it's become such a huge part of Critical Role's presentation that is so popular that many people use it, including other actual play shows, and for good reason. It's fucking brilliant.
What do you see as its brilliance for you?
What it is to me is it is the counterpoint to everybody roll initiative.
Aye.
As we're winding up to something, as things are getting tense, and you see them approach. They don't look like they're backing down. You see him reach for his weapon. You have an opportunity to do something. They make a check. It doesn't work. Everybody roll initiative. And everyone's like, whoa, all right, we're in it now. And it is the opposite of that. It takes us out of that mode. It is this tense combat. We've gone through the ringer. Maybe people have gone down and got brought back up. We're all getting a little bit tired, a little bit haggard. And it's that final blow. And they read out the damage. They go, I deal 15 psychic damage.
I go up to the GM.
You pause. How do you want to do this?
And then it's just release, eh? You know that you're out of initiative. You're into the free form flow of play. And then on the flip side of that, not the flip side, the follow-on of that is that then the player, for a brief moment, gets to be the GM. Which at the time, especially if that was your first interaction with tabletop games, it's like, oh, cool. Now the player gets to talk about this big, epic moment. It's the most narration that they might do the whole time, and they have control not only of what their character does, but increasingly, as the seasons go on, it impacts the world. It becomes a cutscene. It becomes a QuickTime event. It becomes this big, beautiful finale.
It's one of the few places in my games where I will knowingly and willingly yes and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because my player will describe something. They're like, I cut off his head, right? And they might not say much more than that, right? And I go, yeah, absolutely. You draw your axe back two-handed, and as you feel the swing, you even release the frontmost hand. You flip him off as you come up to him, and the last thing he sees is as you knock his head off, and it falls to the ground with the expression frozen in place. And I've taken that little nugget and we've turned it into this even bigger thing. And it's this really funny moment of the time that, they beheaded a guy who was in the moment furious at having been flipped off.
Absolutely. And it's beautiful. It's euphoric. But I have found as a GM, and I found watching Critical Role through the years, I'm the watcher of Critical Role of this too.
Oh God, it has been years.
Over these years, that it, as time goes by, it has its peaks, but it has increasing troughs. And I've been hunting for alt ways to end my encounters that have a similar essence, or maybe not a similar essence, but do some of the same jobs, but aren't exactly how do you want to do this? Because I see it as having a bunch of drawbacks.
Yeah, and I don't always use it. If it's just a regular kind of fight that's not too threatening and we just kind of wrap it up, then it's like the fight just ends and we go about patching up our wounds and refreshing ourselves before moving forward. Not every combat needs that
Soldier
moment.
3 does not need that moment, for
In the same way that the initiative for that might not be that dramatic either. It might be the pack of wolves closes on your camp. Everyone roll initiative.
Ding, ding, ding.
And it doesn't have to be this moment. And you sort of feel that out. But you're right, even then, it is nice to have alternative tools at your disposal. I get the distinct impression you've found one such tool.
I did. It was at a game that I was playing. It was in a Curse of Strahd campaign that I've been playing in for a few years now.
Why
at
is it
this
always
point.
Curse of Strahd?
I don't know, but I do enjoy it. I was wondering the same thing. But
And every D&D horror story is Curse of Strahd as well. What's up with that?
We had a. Well, I mean, we had a near miss. We had the big one, which is the Death House, which is apparently this level
Yep,
1.
yep.
We had all of the beats of that. It was so much fun to read about after the point. But we were playing this game, and we defeated a relatively large enemy. It was an aberration that had been summoned. I don't actually know the full plot of the game. I haven't finished it. But there are aberrations being summoned into Barovia. We defeated one such. It was a very big fight, and we were all pretty worn down. It was a really long, crunchy one, very stressful. Lots of going down, lots of coming up, and then this thing happened. The GM didn't say, how do you want to do this? But the player who dealt the final blow dealt it. And then the person next to them added something in. And then we just fell into this round robin around the table. These are also improvisers I've known for a long time. So this beautiful clicking in moment happened. And then we reflected on it and went, that was a really cool way to finish an encounter. A cinematic moment that actually wasn't just the player who dealt the final blow, but something that clicked around the table. And then we tried it again a couple of games later. And the response that time was people... Sometimes it was like a reaction shot or an internal beat that happened in that moment.
I was going to say, I can immediately see it being that, you don't even have to be adding something to what that player has done and how that's gone down. Maybe it is that. And maybe it's like, as you... maybe the last hit was a critical. It's like, I see you swinging your sword and I just bump the guy ever so slightly so that his exposed neck is right in front of your swing. It could also be, like you say, the reaction to it. You slice the guy's head clean off. I avert my gaze because, I'm a newbie adventurer. Or it could be the cleric goes... in that moment, I'm not even looking. I fall to my knees beside, Roland the Brave as I immediately start trying to tend to his wounds, knowing that it is a futile effort because Roland the Brave has died in the course of this combat. I can immediately see that as being like, not only are you prompting how do you want to do this thing, which is land the killing blow, it's also this narrative beat of how, what is our immediate reaction? What's this moment at the end of this combat that then lets us springboard forward into what the scene is thereafter?
Yeah, it's also not there. It felt like it was a joiner as opposed to sometimes how do you want to do this feels like the full release of tension. It's almost like it's time for a break. And sometimes it is. The other thing that a player brought up...
You're right, it can launch you just to yes, it can launch you into a tense narrative scene. Rather than have it being this sort of halting moment where everything kind of stops and then you kind of have to look at the players and they're like, oh, yeah, I probably would walk over to Roland the Brave and check his pulse. And rather than being this... Okay, I'm going to talk about something here because this has reminded me of something that came from my commentating days. In the world of commentating, you're trying to maintain the tension and the narrative of the match at hand. And there was a very fundamental pattern between your two people in the commentary. In the world of esports, that was split into color casting and play-by-play. Color is analysis. Play-by-play is action. I did play-by-play, so when a fight broke out, I was describing the action, generally trying to highlight to the key things that were going on, and sort of identifying the moments upon which the fight would turn.
What were you commentating?
Mostly Overwatch.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was imagining are we in the world of pro boxing? What are we in?
It was initially League of Legends, later Overwatch, but then the fight would end and I would need to hand over to the other guy, right? And fundamentally, every game has a story to it. There is a narrative thread, and whatever analysis happens needs to set up for the things we're looking for in the next fight. This thing is on cooldown. This person is dead. These people are out of position. This is their advantages. These are their disadvantages. And then when the fight breaks out, I would go... And because they don't have that resource, because it's on cooldown, this thing has happened, and I can describe the natural consequence. And then I would usually hand off to my analyst with something that prompted him to pick up and continue that thread. And it might be they've made a lot of ground, but look at all the resources they've spent. And then they pick it up and going, yeah, now because they're lacking that, as they prepare for this next fight, they're going to need to do this and do this and do this. And it was this back and forth patter rather than being a release. The release happened at the end of the match. But what you're describing is effectively that exact same thing. You're handing it between the GM and player to maintain that narrative momentum, to maintain that tension. Because sometimes we want to do that. Sometimes it's not, here's what's happening and we ramp up to a combat and then we go off in the combat and then we fall off a cliff. Sometimes we actually want things to maintain tense for a really long time, possibly a whole session, because it is this long, intense gauntlet of combats.
When you were talking about that as well, I go, as we approach the end of an encounter, often you do sort of like, sometimes you'll know it's coming, sometimes you don't, but it's a way of thinking about how the rhythm of the table will, you know that it's not going to finish with, for
that's
example...
exactly the word, the rhythm of the table.
Yeah. And it's also when you know that everyone's going to be involved in that last moment, because you are a party, it's an ensemble game, it's an ensemble narrative, even if, say, my character has the great grudge against the Dark Lord, but then your character comes in and takes that blow, we have the opportunity to turn that into a moment together, or as a whole table.
I strike the blow, but you are so incensed that even as his body falls limp to the ground, you run up to it and hack away at his corpse, leaving this bloody mess of rags and flesh. And it's only as your anger subsides and you turn back to the rest of the party that you see the state that they are in, their wounds need tending, and all of your rage drops away. You relinquish your sword, you pull out your medical kit, and you start tending to the wounded.
Yeah, it's like, it's more of a pass back. The other thing that I was getting irksome with how do you want to do this, was I was seeing my tables chasing that last hit point, even in encounters where the design is not building up toward a how do you want to do this, where the point is not to kill the enemy.
The point is to keep them at bay until the ritual can finish.
Yeah, or like this is a gauntlet that you are running through, and this monster is meant to be more of an environmental presence, but it's been identified as our big bad, and now we need to deal with it in that way.
You know, this is actually really interesting that it's made me think of, and I think this is going to have to be its own episode. Not every encounter is a combat. We talk about that all the time. How do you want to do this is great for combats because it is all about landing the final blow. What if it's a chase sequence and the sequence ends when you have guaranteed got away? It's really hard to actually deliver. Oh my goodness. It's really hard to deliver that final moment that is, not only are we definitely out of the chase sequence, it is because of this explosive final beat and not just we've got enough distance, we'll go out of initiative now.
Yeah.
And it sort of tapers off into nothing. Actually delivering an equivalent of how do you want to do this for encounters that are not combats, I think could be an art unto itself.
I actually think Rob Hartley, friend of the show, he's been on here before. He has a system that I know that he runs, which is something called Hero Points. Have you heard of it? Have you heard this before?
They're from Pathfinder.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it's like,
well, they're in other systems as well. Don't get me
wrong. How do they
wrong.
function in Pathfinder? Because the way that I hear about them, it's like a narrative currency that is dropped into the player's lap, and like you can use your Hero Points to basically, how do you want to do this a moment?
Interesting. See, I don't use them like that at all. The way I use them, I'll only talk about this quickly, but in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I misread how they were supposed to work. So I give one out to my players for every single hour of real game time that passes. So they're going to get about 3 or 4 a session. You can spend one to re-roll a dice at any point. That counts as what's called a fortune effect in Pathfinder. So you can't do more than one. You can't have more than one re-roll. So if something else will let you re-roll, you can't then do it again, or you can't just blow through multiple hero points fishing for the right kind of roll. Or if your dying value would increase, which is what eventually leads to permanent death, if your dying value would increase, you can spend all of your remaining hero points to immediately be back up, stable on 1 hit point with no penalty. Usually in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, if you recover from having been downed, you incur a penalty that makes it brings you closer to death if you go down subsequently, and lets you come up without that. So it becomes a use it or lose it. So you probably want to bank 1 in case you're going to go down, but you don't want to bank too many in case you suddenly have to blow 4 to come back up. That's how I use them.
Yeah, it's similar. The way that you're talking, it sounds more of a mechanical resource. The way that Rob uses it.
I play with grognards.
There's a similar one in Fabula Ultima. Your main resource as a player is Fabula, which you can spend to change the story, and it's a way of creating that opportunity that lives inside how do you want to do this. But I believe that I've seen I could be wrong. I believe that I've seen Rob at a certain point at the end of a moment, and it wasn't a big fighty encounter, was like, you have a hero point in this moment to cap us out. And it's like, it lands in their lap, and they have that moment of being free, and they can narrate. And I think there is that release around the table. It does signal an ending, a transition that exists.
Yeah.
You make your way out of the dungeon, everybody gets their hero point. You describe like the full scene as you exit out the other side and let it land with you. I wonder if anything will ever become as ubiquitous as how do you want to do this in the years since Matt has come along. It just feels like it's, you use it, I use it, every Dungeon Master at some point that I've been at is there. It's not in the rules. It's in nowhere. It's not even in Daggerheart's rules. I expected it to be, though I think that philosophy is deep in the system.
But now, see, that's one of those things where, look, I've complained at times about places where systems are lacking in rules because they're relying on conventions. But at the same time, I think one of the coolest things about tabletop RPGs as a hobby are some of these threads of ingrained convention that just propagate organically through the community of hobbyists, whether it's because they played in a game where someone did something or because they saw Matt Mercer do it on Critical Role, whatever it happens to be. I actually think it's really cool when these sorts of conventions get spread around into the community because you can pick and choose them. And then every so often, an idea is so brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, to my mind, how do you want to do this is like 99 cents. Like, somebody came up with the idea of $9.99 instead of $10. That's how good that idea is that everyone now does it, and for good reason.
Aye. Hey, thank you for joining us on the One Shot Show. That is the end of our discussion. We will see you next time. And how do you do this at your game?
If you're enjoying listening to The One Shot Show, why not support us on Patreon? Go to patreon.com/OneShotShow, where you'll be able to find video versions of our episodes, long-form bonus episodes that we release every single month, access to our community Discord server. You can pose questions for our special Q&A episodes, and if you're back at the higher tiers, you can even vote on what questions we cover in our show. Check it out.